happenings of us. And so today we have a very interesting topic to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about our top 5 Texas state parks
So far.
So we visited what, 25? 25 state parks so far out of the 88. And so we just want to talk about our top 5 so far and why they stand out to us.
Yeah.
And so coming in at number 5 is Colorado Bend State Park. And so Nicole, what is your favorite memory from Colorado Bend State Park?
I would have to say that it's the bonding that we got with the girls that day. So it was supposed to be just a you and I trip.
Yep.
And last minute we had my kids, and so they got to come with us. And at the time they were 12 all the way down to 3.
3.
Yeah, 12 to 3. And so Tim and I really wanted to do the Gorman Falls hiking trail. And that was really important to us, but we knew it was going to be far. And so we did the research, we looked, warned the kids, got them all hyped up for it. It's supposed to be 6 miles round trip, which we already knew was kind of pushing it with their ages. But we were like, we're going to do it. And it turned out to be 8 miles round trip.
According to our Apple Watches.
Yes. And it definitely had its challenges, but was probably by far goes down in the books for some really great memories and bonding experiences with the kids. Like really kind of showing them what it is that we love about hiking and getting to share those moments with them. So it was awesome.
Absolutely. And do you remember when we finally got to Gorman Falls, there was something encapsulated by the bank of the river. You remember what it was?
No.
That really old car it's been there for a while.
For a long time, yeah.
And so
I vaguely remember that.
and so I was fascinated about this car that
that had probably been there since at some point when it flooded, I would imagine.
It probably so. And so it had been there for a while because it was pretty much encapsulated by the bank.
Mm-hmm.
But parts of it were kind of barely peeking through to where you could see it. Of course, the river was low.
It was low, yeah. We hadn't got a lot of rain that year at all.
Yeah, and so, but what from this part, what feature from this part really stood out to you the most?
Probably the amount of wildlife that we saw on our hike. So, normally you might see a deer here and there, or maybe an armadillo, or, some fish, different things like that. But we saw so many armadillos on this trail that after like the second or third one, we were like, let's count them and see how many there were. And I think Willow counted over 25.
25, 27, somewhere in there. And I think that is what actually helped get them through that long hike, is just keeping up with how many armadillos they were seeing.
Yeah, because it was hot too.
It was very hot.
We actually ran out of water on our way back.
Yeah.
So that was kind of scary.
Yeah, we didn't plan that one so well.
Yeah. But I will say, before we move on to the number 4, be prepared when you get to Gorman Falls that the hike down is very slippery.
Oh, yes.
I don't even think I was in hiking shoes that day. I don't remember, but my 3-year-old couldn't do it by herself, and they do have a rail, but with a chain, and so I was holding her and holding the chain and sliding down, and it was pretty intense, so that would kind of be my warning of just be prepared for that part. But definitely beautiful, definitely worth going.
Absolutely.
Just be aware.
And then also it's a great fishing spot too.
Yeah.
A lot of fishermen love Colorado Bend. There's a public boat ramp there. There's several places to clean your catch. And so by far it's a good fishing spot in Texas as well. And so was this experience a camping experience, or was it a day trip?
It was a day trip. Yeah, we just went for the day.
And so since it was just a day trip, would you go back to Colorado Bend for a camping experience?
Absolutely. Yeah. And would tape fishing poles next time. So we
Grab
could
the gear and let's go.
So we could experience a little bit of both. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sounds good. And so moving on now from number 5 to number 4, coming in at number 4 is
Davis Mountains
the Davis Mountains State Park.
Yeah.
Which actually, Davis Mountain State Park is a twofer. It's 2 in 1.
Yes, it is.
And so there's Davis Mountain State Park, and in Davis Mountain State Park is
Indian Lodge.
Indian Lodge, which is it's like a hotel in the state park
With
that-
a restaurant.
with it. Yes, we did eat there a couple
Yes,
times.
a couple of times.
And so Indian Lodge was built by the CCC, which we learned a lot about on this trip.
Yeah.
And so, of course, me being the history buff, I like studying the history. And there was a video that gave us the history of the CCC. And like I had learned a little bit about the CCC in history growing up, but I didn't learn the full extent of the CCC. And so this trip, of course, if you don't know what the CCC is, it's the Civilian Conservation Corps. It was developed back in the Depression time to give men an opportunity to provide for their families
Yeah.
during the Depression. And so they built a lot of the state and national parks. And so in Texas, they built quite a few. And we like now, every time we go somewhere, we find
pay
out,
attention.
we pay attention to see if the CCC built that park or not.
Yeah.
About Davis Mountain State Park, what is your favorite memory from the Davis Mountains?
It's hard to pick one favorite memory or moment, but I would probably say being able to explore and the amount that we got to explore while we were there was probably my favorite part. So the hiking trails were amazing. We even went on like an 11-mile one.
Yeah, it was
something
a
like
little
that.
over 11 miles
Yeah.
in one day.
And it was beautiful. It dipped down, it went up high. It was challenging at times.
We signed the log at the top.
Yeah, we signed the log at the top of the, I'll say mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we climbed up. But I really enjoyed the hiking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun hiking, but also the stargazing.
Yes.
On
Yeah,
the
it was
nights
incredible.
on the nights it was clear.
Yeah.
There were some nights it wasn't.
Right.
It was supposed to snow while we were there. We got like a dusting that first night, and that's all we got. And
Yeah.
so we were okay with that.
Yeah. Yes, because it was cold. Yeah.
But the stargazing was pretty cool, being able to see the Milky Way.
Yes. And I will say, if I remember correctly, one of the nights that we were there, and as the moon was rising, we were like, what is that? Because it was so gigantic. Like, it was huge and really filled up like the whole horizon. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So we sat out and watched the moon rise one night, and it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and speaking of stargazing, is not far from Davis Mountains is the McDonald Observatory, which
Yeah.
is an extension of the University of Texas. But we wanted to go there, but it just didn't work out with what we had planned for that trip.
Right.
Because we planned a lot for that trip. And so next time we're out that way,
We'll make it a priority.
We'll make it a priority
Yeah.
to go to McDonald Observatory, because we really like we like stargazing too.
Yeah.
And so, what was your favorite feature, or what feature from Davis Mountains really stood out to you?
Well, I know that it's not necessarily Davis Mountain State Park, but it's inside of it. So I would probably say the Indian Lodge and the ability to get out of the cold for a little while, because we were like in a pop-up that didn't have a heater really. And so eating breakfast, we would have had to eat outside because our pop-up is really like half of a pop-up kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you can't really eat inside of it. So we would have been outside in the cold eating, and it was nice to have that option to get out of the cold and go in and have some hot coffee, and it has a beautiful view. So that would probably be my favorite feature.
And along with the Indian Lodge, another thing that I really liked about Davis Mountains was their nature center, where
Oh,
you
yeah.
got to sit inside this building and be able to look out the windows, and they had feeders for the birds and the deer, and
Little fountain.
little fountain for them to drink some fresh water, which is also where that video was playing about the CCC and giving you the history about it. But also on one of our hiking trails, there was the old restroom
Oh yeah.
that the CCC had built that was no longer in commission.
Right.
It had a funny name.
Yeah, I don't remember the name.
It's been over a year since we've been there, and so
Yeah.
but I remember it had a funny name, and so maybe in the picture, like maybe I took a picture of it or something, and so maybe I can pop it up
Yeah.
during this video. But I really just the view from there.
Mhm.
Or it was the Lou with a View. That's the name of it.
Yep.
The Lou with a View.
There you go.
And so it had a really, it really did have a nice view.
Yeah.
Pun intended, I guess.
Yeah.
But, but also it had the other feature that they built on top of the mountain, where it allowed you to have a better place to stargaze.
Mhm.
Where you could eat, and for those that don't like or that don't have the ability to hike, you can actually drive to the top.
Right.
The CCC built a road that goes to the top of the mountain to where you can then get out and stargaze as well. And so that was a pretty cool feature.
Yeah.
And so almost forgot, there's for those that do like hiking and you like history like me, there is a trail that leads from Davis Mountain State Park
Oh yeah.
down to Fort Davis National Historical Site, which is one of the old forts out in West Texas. And you can hike from the state park to the National Historical Site, or vice versa.
Mhm.
And we did visit.
Yeah.
The
We
historic-
drove. We didn't do the hike.
Yeah.
But drove over and spent some time at the museum or at the historical site.
Which,
Yeah.
which I think that trail is a little over a mile.
Yeah. It's not too bad.
It's not too bad. We just, again, we planned a lot for that trip,
Yes.
which more from that trip will probably come in future videos.
Yeah.
Uh,
Probably.
And so, but this was a camping experience for us.
Yes.
And so, do you recommend camping at Davis Mountains?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the cool part about that specific state park that I remember is there were a lot of people that were camping there that had obviously been there for long periods of time. And so getting to see how they had set up their campsite was really cool. People had Christmas lights out because we went right before Christmas time.
Yeah, sure did.
And so it was neat to get to see that, where it was kind of like their home away from home for a period of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so, definitely recommend camping at Davis Mountains. If you go in the cold weather and you're not a big fan of camping, stay at the Indian Lodge.
True. Yeah.
And so, moving on
Mm-hmm.
to number 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's a state park that you've been to multiple times.
Yes.
I've only been once.
Yes.
And so at this state park, the memories that we had together was, I'm getting ahead of myself. Number 3,
Inks Lake.
Inks Lake State Park.
I was waiting.
You were
We're gonna
waiting.
go back to
I
that.
was going a little too fast for myself.
Yeah.
And so your favorite memory
Yep.
from our trip there
Yep.
was what?
Was getting to show you the memories that I made as a child, really. It was a place that we frequented with my youth group when I was in youth group. We went every summer for several years, and I just had some really incredible memories. And so getting to show you where I jumped off the cliff into the water, and where we camped at, it was just neat to share that experience with you.
And so, would you jump off that cliff again today?
So there are 2 different areas that you could jump off in the cliff. I'd probably do the lower one.
The lower one? You wouldn't go up to the higher one again?
I don't think so. No. And I think I would have a heart attack if my kids tried to do it. My parents were not with me when we say that.
So, if you're watching, she went off the high one.
Yeah, that is true.
And so,
Multiple times.
And so, of course, we did a short hike while we were there,
Yeah.
going down to your favorite
Kind
areas
of area where you
the park.
swim. Yeah.
And so, you know, that was pretty cool.
Mhm.
Getting to see some stuff that you had done in your early childhood.
Yeah.
And so, what is your favorite feature from Inks Lake?
Probably one of my favorite features is just the ability to get to do multiple things with kids and families. You know, they have a playground, they have an area for you to get snow cones, you can geocache. The hiking is pretty nice. You can hike for days and probably not see everything. And then the lake, of course, and the ability to rent like paddle boats and kayaks and things like that. So
And fish.
and fish, yep, you can fish there, which we will probably go back and do one day. But yeah, they just have a lot of things that are very accommodating for families.
Actually, we are going back there in June.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't know that we'll fish in June because we're celebrating one of my kids' birthdays, and that was her desire, was to go on a camping trip with some friends. So
Yeah, and then on our day trip there,
yeah,
we took a short little drive from there
right,
to Longhorn Cavern State Park,
yeah,
which is on the.
It's not far.
It's not far. It's on the Texas Cave Trail, which there will be a future video about because we did do the Texas Cave Trail.
Yeah.
And so visit Longhorn Cavern if you're at Inks Lake. It's a pretty cool little place too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I just said, this was a day trip for us,
Yes.
and we've already mentioned that
Yep.
we do plan to go back.
Yep. To spend the night. We're camping.
We're going to be camping
Yep.
the next time we go in June.
Yep.
And so,
And I think we're staying in a screen shelter, actually.
yeah.
Yeah, because they do have screen shelters, tent sites, RV sites. So I think we booked a screen shelter.
And when we go camping, like we've done all three.
Yeah, yeah. we
We've
have
done tent, we've done camper, we've done screen shelter, cabin.
Cabin, yeah.
And so, yeah, that's Inks Lake for us.
Yep.
And so, moving on to number 2 on our list
Mm-hmm.
is a very special place to us.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a place that you've visited more than me.
Yes, this is true as well.
And so, number 2 is
Garner State Park.
Garner State Park. And why is Garner State Park so special to us?
Well, we took our wedding photos at the top of Old Baldy, as well as said our vows to each other for the first time up there in front of a few of our closest friends.
Where we went
And
through
family.
where we did our rehearsal.
Yeah, yeah. So, obviously, it holds a very special place.
Yeah. And so because Garner State Park is on the Frio River.
Yep.
And down on the banks of the Frio River, underneath the huge cypress trees,
Mm-hmm.
is where we said I do.
Yep.
And that was actually on the opposite side of the river as Garner State Park in a little RV community
Yep.
called Nana's
Nana's RV Park.
on the Frio.
Yeah.
And by the way, some of the best customer service I've ever experienced was by the staff there.
Yeah.
So, you know, Garner books up fast.
Yeah. 6 months in advance.
And so, if you want to go to Garner and it's booked up, book you a spot at Nana's RV.
Yeah.
Like, they will treat you like royalty. They really did.
Yeah.
And so just a little quick shout out to them.
Yeah.
And so obviously, like, Garner holds a special spot for us.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite memory from Garner State Park?
Well, favorite memory is climbing Old Baldy and saying our vows at the top for the first time.
Yeah. That's pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, what feature from Garner State Park really stands out to you the most?
Oh goodness. I personally really enjoy, well, I guess there's a few, so I'm not going to just pick one. I really like the hiking trails. They have a cave.
Which you've been in that
I've
cave.
been in that cave with
Would
my
you-
oldest.
Would you go back in that cave?
Maybe, maybe not.
Your oldest would not go back
No,
in the cave.
she would not.
'Cause what was in that cave?
Daddy long legs, and not just like 5 of them, like thousands of them, like literally pulsating at the top. Where when we climbed out, me and my daughter almost hit our heads on the rock that they were right next to. So that, thank goodness we didn't even know they were there, or I think we'd still be in the cave today if we knew that. But anyways, that's off topic. So the cave, Old Baldy, is an amazing hiking trail that I love. I've done it multiple times. And then the Frio is there, and it's cold. The water is cold, so it's really nice and refreshing when you have been hiking to go jump in the river and cool off. And the water is beautiful. You can just see through it.
And I would describe Garner State Park like this. Garner State Park is the KOA of Texas state parks. Like, it has putt-putt. It has an ice cream shop.
Mm-hmm.
It has multiple events that go on
Yeah,
in the evening time, even some in the daytime.
yeah.
And it's one of the larger state parks. And there's a lot of camping
Yes,
that can
a
happen.
lot.
There's a lot of campsites at Garner, but they, like we said previously, like, it fills up fast,
Yeah.
and you can see why. It's a very family friendly environment.
Mm-hmm. And cheaper than most KOAs.
Absolutely,
Like, way cheaper.
way cheaper than KOA. And so, but the day we hiked up to the cave,
Mm-hmm.
we also hiked at another state park,
Yeah.
which
Would
you-
probably make it in our top 10 if we were going to do a top 10 video.
if we did a top
honestly.
10, that state park would be in the top 10. And why do you like that state park?
Well, first of all, that state park is Lost Maples.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I was leading to you.
It's the foliage, the fall foliage. Like, I would definitely go in the fall time. The colors of the leaves
Because
are
fall
absolutely
is your
gorgeous.
favorite
Yes.
color.
Well, it is my favorite season. Yeah, and all the colors that come with it. So, 100%, like, definitely recommend it for that season, especially. But I'm sure it's beautiful all time of the year. Yeah.
And so, with Garner, we already said, Garner was a camping experience for us.
Yes.
We spent 5 days, and we went to Garner a couple of them.
Yeah. At least
and
2 days.
at
2
least-
days we
at
went
least
in
2
for the
days.
day, and then we went to Lost Maples for a day,
And
and then spent some time in Nana's, just in the river, and playing cornhole and just enjoying the area.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, definitely recommend
Yeah.
camping at Garner State Park. If you can't get into Garner, hit up Nana's RV right across the river.
Yep.
You will not regret it at all. And so, moving on from number 2 to number 1, I'm sure everybody's waiting to hear what our number 1, in our opinion, is.
So far.
So far, because we've only done 25 of the 88.
Yeah.
So far, our number 1 state park in the state of Texas is Lake Mineral Wells. Lake Mineral Wells State Park in Mineral Wells, Texas, was by far one of the best experiences we've had
Yeah.
to date.
Yeah.
It's
Even though it rained most of the time that we were there,
at least
significantly.
half the time
Yeah.
we were there.
It was still, I'd do it all over again, even if I knew it was going to rain the whole time.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. Yeah.
And so, what is your favorite memory from Lake Mineral Wells?
So that is that trip was the first fishing experience that I've had in a super long time. I used to fish all the time with my dad when I was a kid and had some really great memories, but just didn't really do it as an adult. And Tim loves to fish, and so that was kind of, rather than it being a hiking trip per se, we're gonna make this a fishing trip, and I'm so glad that we did, because I just fell in love with it all over again, and we had a great time. Like, it was really great.
And you bagged the biggest fish of the
I did.
trip.
Yeah, catfish.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a nice sized catfish.
Gave me a run for my money.
You had a nice sized drum too.
Yeah.
And I had a couple get away from me, but like there
You
was
still
several.
caught some good ones.
I did still catch some
Yeah.
good ones, but
We're not competitive at all.
no, not at all.
Mhm.
Mm-mm. But there was several places to fish,
Yes.
even from the bank.
From piers,
From piers. There was a few of them you had to hike to, but
which was really neat because they weren't busy.
which is where you caught the big catfish,
Mhm.
because not a lot of people were fishing there. And but what is your what feature from the park really stood out to you the most?
For me, it would have to be the ability to rent a boat, and not just like a kayak or a canoe. It was a miniature pontoon boat
Yeah.
that had a trolling motor to it, and it got us the ability to go out onto the lake some and do some fishing out there, and that was just a lot of fun. Like, it was a really neat opportunity, and not a lot of places do that we've been to.
It was fun until that storm caught us.
True. Yeah. So when they tell you to pay attention to the wind, and if it's more than like 10 miles per hour, you don't go out, listen to them, because we did listen, but a storm snuck up on us from nowhere, and we kind of got stuck a little bit, and it was a little scary there for a hot minute.
But we're still here.
Yeah, we made it back, and we'll be back out the next day on
Yep.
it when the weather was nice again, and we would do it again
Absolutely,
for sure. Yeah.
absolutely. That's where you
Yeah.
caught your drum too. Was when we were on the pontoon boat.
Yeah.
We were able to get in the little cove. We had some nice fishing over there in
Oh
the
yeah,
cove.
yeah.
And so, definitely renting the boat was one of the great features
Yeah.
for me. Me being a fisherman, loving to fish, which in the state of Texas, like you don't need a fishing license if you're at a state park.
Right.
In which Lake Mineral Wells,
The whole lake.
the whole lake
is
is,
a part of that
is
state park.
a part of the state park. So actually getting on the boat and fishing in the lake, you don't need a license to do that.
Right.
But we both carry Texas state fishing license. But I think that for me, that renting that boat was a good feature. And so we've already mentioned we were there a couple days. So
Yeah.
this was a camping experience for us.
Yep.
And so would you go back and camp at Lake Mineral Wells?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we actually drove around a few times looking and marking the places,
We made that list of
Yeah.
the best
camping spots
Yeah.
that were like right on the lake, so that you could walk out of your camper, out of your tent, and sit there and start casting a line and just fishing
or
right
even
there.
put a kayak in the water.
Yeah, or put a kayak in. Absolutely.
And so Lake Mineral Wells, we rank it number 1 so far.
Yeah, it holds some really special memories for us. A lot of good times.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to go fishing, because maybe that's just not what you want to do, they have an entire beach area that
is true.
for swimming that they have marked off, and so it's huge. It's a really nice area, and we saw tons of people out there every day. So yeah.
Yeah. And so that wraps up our top 5 so far
Yep.
of the Texas state parks. I'm sure as we continue to do our travels, we'll continue to do videos that
Yep.
just kind of outline our trips. Of course, we haven't been doing, the all 25. We're just starting this channel.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to do this video of our top 5. But you can always come back, because we will continue our travels and we'll do videos like this of our travels to everywhere we go.
Yep. And coming up in March for spring break, we have 2 trips planned to 2 new parks we've never been to, which is Choke Canyon State Park
Yeah.
and Lake Somerville.
And
then
just next week we have another trip
Yeah.
planned to Lake Somerville State
I said
Park.
that one. So it's Tyler State Park in March. My bad.
Well, we have Choke Canyon in March. We have Tyler in March, and I think we're going to try to do Atlanta with the Tyler
Fairfield. Is that what you mean?
and Fairfield too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so lots of state
Lots
parks,
of 'em.
obviously, that we're going to be hitting up here in the next couple of months.
We have a list.
Yeah.
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 And so, again, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on The Happenings of Us. For videos like this and more, check out our socials and hit that like and subscribe button.